views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Get ready for a game changer. Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sarah will bring you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Now here's your host, Sarah Westall.
Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall, and you're listening to Conscious Business Radio on the Transformation Talk Radio Network. Today we're going to talk about how the United States can remain globally competitive. How do we remain competitive when we have so many issues? We have a ton of issues that we need to take care of. Other countries do too, obviously, but some of them, or a lot of them, are taking these issues a lot more seriously, and they're really trying to combat them, or they just don't have the same level of issues that we have. So how do we remain competitive in a global market when other countries don't have the same level of issues that we do, or they're much more serious about taking care of their issues? Is it possible for us to remain competitive in that kind of environment? And the other question, is it okay for our main industry to just be the military? We excel at that, but is our country going to be healthy long term, and are we going to thrive when our main industry is military? Okay, let's talk some numbers here. The U.S. national debt is over $19.5 trillion right now, and it's growing at an incredible rate. You can go see the debt clock at usdebtclock.org. It's pretty incredible. It is now larger than the U.S. gross domestic product, which sits at approximately $18.5 trillion. It cannot continue to increase at this rate without debt becoming unpayable and resulting in serious consequences. I don't know if it's payable now. I guess I can't get my head completely around how this whole thing can keep going. Now let's talk about corruption. Corruption is everywhere, not just the United States. We are not the sole owners of corruption. Other countries have it as well. But we have quite a bit of dishonesty, disloyalty, greedy citizens and leaders that have been allowed to flourish over the last few decades. And we've always had that, but not at the level that we've had recently. It's become an epidemic that's undermining the security and future of our nation. And there are countless examples and tragic consequences that have been documented really well over the past decade on this topic. It's something we need to get a handle on. With all those issues, we also have political gridlock. So how are we going to solve these problems when we have political gridlock at unprecedented levels? We've always had some political gridlock, right? But according to the Brookings Institute, political gridlock now is twice as prevalent as it was in 1950. It has become increasingly difficult for leaders to put meaningful legislation through Congress. And as you are all aware, the media is not helping, as it has become just as polarized as the politicians in Washington, which you can see when you watch all the major networks. You see one is really, really to the left and others are really to the right. It's really obvious. Without a focused action on a shared vision, it will be extremely difficult to solve serious issues. We really need to get together and work hard, just like in a business where you have a shared vision and you have goals, and everybody with all these different ideas and concepts in business, if you get a shared vision and you have the same goals, you at least march in the same direction. Even if you have different ideas and have different personalities and come from different backgrounds, you can get a group of people to march in the same direction if you all share the same vision and goals. We don't have that in this country, and it's something that needs to be fixed. And let's talk about global competition a bit. The United States, we still lead in higher education, medical innovation, nanotechnology, and in military defense. We also lead in AI, which is pretty cool. But other countries are catching up or bypassing the United States in many important areas. For example, China has overtaken the U.S. not only in GDP, but also in important industries such as manufacturing, supercomputing, and rare mineral mining and production, which could be a critical issue for us. France leads the world in healthcare for its citizens, Japan in robotics, and many other countries are excelling in different niche industries around the world. So with all these challenges that we're facing in our country, how are we going to remain competitive in an increasingly global competitive environment? That's our question today. And to answer that, we are bringing an expert, Mark Minovich, who is the senior advisor of the Council on Competitiveness in Washington, D.C. And that council is the who's who of leadership in our country. They bring the leaders of universities, the CEOs of all the major corporations together and talk about how we can be competitive in the global market. And we are lucky to have the senior advisor from that council come and talk to us about what they are doing and how they see this problem. They're aware of these issues and they're trying to figure out how we can march to the same drum, get Congress on the same page and become competitive. What's really neat about these people is they're patriots. They're not just international corporations looking to create every country can compete with us. They don't care. No, they are patriots who are trying to make the United States great and create jobs for U.S. citizens. So it's a really neat thing that they're doing. The other thing about him is he's the principal founder of Going Global Ventures, a New York-based global investment technology and strategic advisory firm. He has been looking at these issues for years and years. He's also the author of many highly acclaimed books, including 6 Billion Minds and the CTO Handbook, the Indispensable Technology Leadership Resource. He is the recipient of the prestigious Albert Einstein Award for Outstanding Achievement on Global Innovation and World Trade Leadership Award, which is pretty cool. So let's welcome Mark Minovich to the program. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm pleased to be here.
Well, I am excited to talk to you because it's such an important topic that you focus on. And your focus, part of your focus, you have a pretty broad spectrum of things that you do, but part of it is on the Competitive Council for the United States. Can you tell us what that is?
Absolutely, Sarah. Actually, just came back from Washington, D.C. Yesterday. I had a whole day of meetings in Washington with my peers and colleagues. So the United States Council of Competitiveness is a nonpartisan leadership organization. Corporate CEO leaders, university presidents, labor leaders, and all the major national laboratory research directors in the United States fully committed to driving U.S. productivity, innovation, and growth. And most importantly, Sarah, increasing living standards for every American.
Which is really a pretty critical issue right now as far as us staying competitive globally and keeping our standards of living, because as we compete with other countries around the world, our standard of living is in jeopardy. So
it absolutely is. We have some issues which we will talk about in the conversation. At least I hope that we will. We got to do better with our productivity. Just by a little, we got to increase our productivity. We got to keep increasing our growth, and we have to make sure we're constantly on top of innovation. We are a leader on innovation, but we got to do better in that. But I am concerned about productivity. I am concerned that people are working harder every day. They're putting in longer hours, but we're not as productive. The productivity numbers don't reflect that.
We have to be smarter on how we have to use technology and be smarter on how we get to that higher productivity. Because it's not going to come by working harder, because Americans work harder than pretty much everybody in the world, right? So we have to do it through other means.
We are the hardest working people in the world during summer vacations, when everybody is vacationing in Europe and other places, we continue to work. And I'm also concerned that we are entering, and I don't want to dwell on this in the beginning of our conversation, but since we are having this conversation, we're we're beginning in America a focus on so-called gig economy, which means people are working on multiple jobs, very disconnected from a theme of continuity and continuing career progress and really providing the best that they can to impact the growth and productivity in the United States. So this gig economy has advantages where we're mobile, we're nomadic, but it isn't helping us, as you mentioned, with the goals of growth and productivity, and we have to find a balance in this new world.
Well, I think people and companies are looking for people who have the skill sets right now to do a task that they have on hand or a project they have on hand. And it used to be you look for a type of candidate with the right ideals and things that align with your company, and then they grow into the roles that you need. And we've gotten away from that. And I think that's what you're saying, right? Is that we need to develop people and develop you don't look, if you look at just gigs, then you're not going towards growth of individuals in the long term.
What exactly, Sarah? Exactly. You said it so perfectly well. What we're doing right now is we're freelancing our economy, which means we're working on many, many things, and we're not deep diving. We're not really doing them. We're not doing them with full intensity and full capacity that we have as Americans, because when we focus on something, we get it right. And we've shown that over many, many years in our history in the United States. But we're doing pieces here, pieces there. It doesn't seem to be a very focused attempt. And the gig economy reflects that.
Well, what is the Global Federation of Competitive Councils? Why are we working with a global group?
Yeah, so United States Competitiveness Council several years ago became a major supporter of creating innovation and competitiveness and fostering competitiveness around the world, because we got to work together. And with different countries around the world, we're not an island. And so the Global Federation of Competitiveness Council was born with a thought of collaboration. And it's not only the U.S. Competitiveness Council, which is part of it. There are many, many other leaders from different countries in the Middle East, Brazil, and others. And it's basically a network of leaders and organizations that are also focusing on competitiveness from around the world, that are committed to the implementation of the competitiveness strategies to drive innovation, productivity, prosperity for nations and regions and cities. And JFCC has a very major role to play. It develops and implements ideas, concepts, and initiatives and tools to understand and navigate lots of complexity in the global competitive landscape. And there's lots of interesting programs from universities to research to smart cities to different programs and events around the world. In fact, there is a program which will happen in London, which will bring together all the major leaders from around the world in competitiveness and innovation to London at the end of November, where people will focus on prosperity. They'll focus on how countries will engage globally through bilateral and multilateral partnerships to catalyze competitiveness and innovation. So I hope I answered what JFCC is. It's an umbrella. It's an umbrella of countries and associations within those countries that are fostering the growth of competitiveness.
So is this in any way related to the UN? Is the UN supportive of this?
No, it is absolutely not supported by the United Nations. It is an independent entity. It is a non-for-profit entity. It operates out of Washington, D.C., and it is supported by its members. It is supported by countries. It is supported by innovation labs and different associations with from regions and countries around the world.
So I know that you give advice to Congress, but do they listen? When you come up with ideas, does Congress embrace it?
Well, I will. I will answer this question. First of all, let me share a little bit about my role within the council. So, you know, in terms of what I do within the council. So my role as a senior advisor and a senior fellow, and the other work that you mentioned that I do around the world, from venture capital to innovation to technology, I really try to provide strategic advice and counsel to help guide the Competitiveness Council's policies at home and abroad, strengthening and growing the community of our members and participants and many different ongoing programs. And there are all different initiatives, which I will discuss.